Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Photography Podcast. My name is Drew Zink, and before we get started with this week's video, I'd like to go over just a few things. I've had a couple questions about first masking in Photoshop, and today's tutorial is going to include some masking, but to get a real detailed look at how to mask and what masking all entails and everything, I will go over that in a later video. It's not something I want to include in this video because masking can get rather involved, and I'd like to keep it separate from the tutorial that the series that I'm doing right now. The second thing is I've had some questions about how I bounce my flashes into different settings or situations, and I am going to be shooting a video that I'm actually in going over the different ways that I shoot or bounce my flashes into rooms or shoot my flashes into rooms depending on the situation. And I hope to secure a location for that, a real nice model home, so that you can get an idea of my thought processes and that type of thing. So be looking for those videos sometime here in the near future. Okay. Well, today my video is just going to be kind of a continuation of the series that I've been doing, from the promote control to bracketing my exposures to bouncing my flash in. And here I'd like to talk about how I edit and final output the images after I've gotten back to my home computer. So the first thing I do, obviously, is download my cards, import into to Lightroom. Once all of my pictures are in Lightroom, the first thing I do is auto white balance everything. And the reason I auto white balance is, if I'm shooting 3 or 4 homes a day, that means I've got 300 to 400 pictures that I have to white balance. And I find that the auto white balance gets me close enough for what I need, and then I can fine tune it at the end of my editing process. So, here is the straight out of the camera white balance. Here is the auto white balance. It's a little cooler, but much closer to the actual white balance than the one right out of the camera. So once I have auto white balanced everything, the first thing I do is go up here to Photo, down to Auto Stack by Capture Time, and I usually leave that around 25 seconds. And I click Stack. Then I'll go back up to Stacking, collapse all stacks. Now, in this tutorial, I've already run all the processes and I have the final image. So my stacks down here are stacks of 7 and 8, but normally those stacks would be stacks of 5 because that's the number of shots in the bracketed set that I take. Once I have the stack set up the way I want, I come up to plugins, plugin extras, and use blend exposures using Lightroom Infuse. I use Lightroom Infuse because it's the product that I'm most comfortable with. So I select that, and you get this dialog box. And under configuration is just where the program resides and installation, all that good stuff. Auto align, I never do because I shoot on a tripod, and the auto align increases the processing time greatly. Right now it's about 30 seconds for me on my iMac per image, and that the auto align brings it up to like a minute 30. So it's something I never use. Infuse, the settings are basically the default settings. I haven't changed anything from when the program was installed. And output. Here I select my batch processing. I also can choose where I want the photos to be output. Name changes, re-import to Lightroom, and then I click Infuse. So once I have all of my processes done, usually takes depending on the number of images, 10 to 15 minutes to infuse a house. I come back into Lightroom and I'll show you here. Fused image. Here's good. So I get something like this. Now this day, this room was really dark. It was really bright outside. So the interior looks okay, but I've lost a lot on the exterior. So what do? Well, in this particular image, I bracketed a number of shots. And so I really like this one for the interior, but I'm going to have to use something like this for the exterior because it just looks so much nicer. So I will come in over to the develop module. Open up the blended image that I like inside, and I will start to make my corrections. You could use a little bit of boost in the shadows here. And just some overall brightening. Maybe bring down the highlights a little bit. Just want to bring down this hot spot right here. And maybe a little bit of these lights. So bring this down just a little bit. You can check right here on, if you go up here, see where the hot spots are. And the only real hot spots that I'm getting in this picture are right up in here, and this is blown out obviously. Yeah. So I'm pretty close to being happy with the interior image. I might brighten this even still a little bit more. My clients really like bright images. This looks great for an interior, but the exterior looks like crap. So what I will do is I'll come over to this image here that I wanted to use for the exterior, and I will go through and start to brighten this up. Bring up my shadows, bring up exposure. And what I'm looking to do is to basically get the transition to be very even from where the interior and the exterior meet, so that it's not real stark, so it doesn't look, like that. The transition is very abrupt. I'm trying to avoid that. So we're right here. We're going to have the outside blown out again. I'm going to bring down the highlights a bunch. Here we start to look kind of nice. I'm going to bring down the whites a little bit. And maybe I'll bring the exposure down just a tad. And this transition is starting to look rather nice. All right, maybe the white's a little bit more. Perfect. All right, so we have these two images. I will select both of them and bring them into Photoshop. All right. Once into Photoshop, I will bring the darker image, the outside image, and layer it on top of the brighter image. So now it's set up like this. And using a layer mask, come down here where it says add layer mask, and if you hold the Option key on Mac and click at the same time, it'll completely hide that layer. And then using white to show on this layer, I have the layer mask selected. Using a white brush, bring this down. I will start to bring in very slowly the exterior picture, or the exterior portion of the image. And I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm doing a really crappy job, but I'm doing it really quick here. Mistake. And the nice thing about a layer mask is that you can always go back and remove what you did. It's not permanent. Using black to hide, I can come in here, kind of clean that up a little bit. All right, but we still have a problem over here. All right, so let's say we're done. What I typically will do is I will duplicate this layer, the dark layer. You do that with Command J. We'll duplicate that. We'll get rid of the layer mask here. And I'll add a new layer mask again, like that. And on this layer, I'll bring in the shades. Now, these are going to look really bad, and that's okay. So let's say we're bringing in this shade here. Again, I'm doing a really sloppy job just to get this done quickly. And clean that edge up, kind of. And you get the idea, you know, I clean that edge up and you know, there you are. But you can, as you can tell, it just looks awful because the transition is just so, you know, abrupt. So what I will do then is, to make it look a little bit more natural, just bring the opacity down on this layer to somewhere where it's comfortable. You know, I usually will drop it down to like a 40. You know, here where I've brought some of it back from there to there, but it's not so much that it looks unnatural. You know, it's not crazy. And I also will usually drop down the outside layer just a little bit too, maybe to like a 75, something like in that, from that to that, from that to that. So then I merge all these layers together and I save it. So then we come back into Lightroom. We have something in the neighborhood of this, right? So I brought back in these a little bit, brought back out on the outside a little bit, evened everything out across, and I do my final touch-ups, which is some contrast, usually a little bit of clarity. By this time, I've probably introduced a little bit of noise, so I'll bring in some noise reduction. And then finally, I will do lens correction to get all my verticals straight, or as straight as they can be. Sometimes, you know, you find a house that the walls are kind of all over the place, a little crooked, and you can't get everything perfectly straight, and that's fine. But I do my best to get my verticals as straight as possible. And that's the basic process that I use. You know, sometimes I will have to mask in other parts. You know, if there's like a real bad highlight on a chair, I have to mask in that. This one was real simple with the windows. Or sometimes there's a really dark, like in this fireplace, I really don't care what's in here, but sometimes there's a really dark corner to a room. I'll have to mask in that. All different kinds of stuff. It's really just about getting this initial blended exposure, and then going back through my other images and blending in the parts that I need to the infused exposure to get my final image, something that looks like this. All right, well, that's it for now. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. I'd be glad to answer any questions, and be on the lookout for the videos I told you about at the beginning of the show. Have a good day.